The Great Pyramid of Giza faces true north with a precision that challenges modern engineering. This is no accident, but the work of forgotten civilizations who mastered geometry to build monuments that would last forever. By the end of this journey, you will understand the universal geometric language that allowed ancient builders to create structures immune to the passage of time. How did cultures across the globe with no contact discover the same mathematical secrets? Why did they encode celestial patterns into stone with such breathtaking accuracy? What single idea connects a pyramid in Egypt to a temple in Cambodia? This knowledge was once the key to architectural immortality. What do you believe is the most enduring legacy a civilization can leave behind? That master craftsman in Egypt did not see a simple triangle in his plans. He saw a sacred bridge reaching from our world to the heavens. For ancient builders across the globe, geometry was far more than mathematics. It was a spiritual language, the very blueprint of creation. They observed that certain shapes and ratios repeated throughout nature, from the spiral of a seashell to the orbit of a planet. This was not coincidence, it was evidence of a divine order, and by using this same order in their constructions, they believed they could build structures that were in harmony with the universe itself. Think of the fundamental shapes they revered. The circle with no beginning and no end represented the eternal cycles of the stars and the infinite nature of the divine. The square with its 4 equal sides symbolized the solid, stable earth, the 4 cardinal directions, the very foundation of the material world. And the triangle, pointing ever upward, became the powerful connector, the shape that could unite the earthly square with the celestial circle. This is why pyramids take their form. They are not just tombs, they are massive triangles, physical prayers designed to lift the soul from the earthly realm toward the stars. This belief was a universal thread connecting distant cultures. The ancient texts of India, the Vedas, describe the entire universe emerging from a single, primordial geometric form. In ancient Greece, the philosopher Plato declared that 5 specific 3-dimensional shapes, the Platonic solids, were the essential building blocks of all reality, from the air we breathe to the cosmos itself. Building with perfect geometry was not just engineering. It was an act of worship, a way to channel what they saw as celestial energies and maintain balance in the world. When you understand that they were building temples to resonate with the cosmos itself, their obsession with perfect angles, precise alignments, and proportions that we still marvel at today suddenly makes profound sense. This sacred pursuit of harmony is what drove them to achieve the impossible, setting the stage for the specific, mind-bending techniques they would develop. That ancient architect with his knotted rope held a secret far more powerful than any modern blueprint. He understood that the beauty and strength of a structure did not come from its size or ornamentation, but from the invisible mathematical relationships woven between its parts. This was the mastery of proportional systems, the first geometric principle that turned stone into song. At the heart of this understanding was a number that seemed to whisper through all of creation, approximately 1.618, known to us as the golden ratio. You can see it in the elegant spiral of a nautilus shell, where each chamber grows in perfect proportion to the last. You can find it in the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower or the petals of a rose. Ancient builders saw this recurring pattern not as coincidence, but as the fundamental signature of life and growth. By embedding this same ratio into their temples and tombs, they were not merely building. They were attempting to capture the very essence of nature in stone. Look at the Parthenon in Greece. Its magnificent facade, the relationship of its width to its height, conforms to the golden ratio with breathtaking accuracy, creating a sense of balance that feels instinctively right to the human eye. Journey to the Great Pyramid of Giza, and you find its height stands in a nearly perfect golden ratio relationship to half its base perimeter. This was not a happy accident. It was intentional, a deliberate encoding of a cosmic principle, but the golden ratio was just one dialect in this universal language of proportion. In Egypt, architects used a system called the seq. This was a precise method for defining the slope of a pyramid's sides using a simple ratio of horizontal to vertical units. It ensured that every single block, from the foundation to the capstone, was placed at the exact correct angle to achieve that iconic soaring form. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, the builders of Hindu temples worked from a sacred diagram called the Vastu Purusha Mandala. This was a complex geometric grid, a symbolic map of the cosmos that dictated every single dimension of the temple, from the overall layout down to the size of individual rooms. The placement of walls, pillars, and altars was all determined by this proportional grid, aligning the man-made structure with the perceived order of the universe. These systems were never arbitrary. They were the practical application of a deep philosophical truth that harmony in mathematics leads to harmony in form, which in turn creates structural stability that can endure for millennia. This is why, even today, standing before these monuments, we do not just see piles of rock. We feel a profound sense of balance, a quiet rightness that transcends culture and time. We are responding to the same mathematical constants that the builders so revered, but this mastery of proportion on the ground was only the beginning. To truly achieve immortality, these structures needed to be locked into a much larger celestial framework. 5,000 years ago, as the deepest winter darkness settled over the Irish landscape, a single, narrow beam of sunlight would pierce the long entrance passage of Newgrange. For 17 minutes, this ray of light would travel 60 feet into the heart of the tomb, illuminating a chamber that lay in utter blackness the rest of the year. This was not a chance occurrence, it was a feat of celestial engineering, a perfect alignment achieved at the winter solstice, repeated with unerring accuracy for millennia. This profound connection between architecture and the cosmos represents the second geometric principle these cultures mastered: advanced astronomical alignment. To achieve this, ancient builders had to become masters of the sky. They needed to track the slow, rhythmic dance of the sun, moon, and planets over generations, translating their cyclical paths into fixed, immutable lines on the ground. This required a deep, intuitive understanding of spherical geometry, the mathematics of the heavens, long before it was formally defined. They were calculating angles and trajectories that accounted for the Earth's curvature, all without the aid of telescopes or modern instruments. The Mayans, for instance, were obsessed with the planet Venus. They tracked its complex 584-day cycle with such precision that they built temples like the Caracol at Chichen Itza, with its narrow windows and aligned stairways specifically designed to frame the planet's extreme rising and setting points. In England, the massive sarsen stones of Stonehenge were arranged to create a permanent astronomical observatory. On the summer solstice, the sun rises directly over the heel stone, casting its light into the center of the circle, while the winter solstice sunset is framed by another key alignment. The geometric challenge here was immense. How do you establish a perfect line to a celestial event that only happens once a year? The builders likely used a series of wooden posts or standing stones as sightlines, creating a long baseline for triangulation. They would watch the sun's movement for years, marking its northernmost and southernmost points on the horizon at the solstices. By bisecting the angle between these 2 points, they could find true east and west. Establishing true north was another monumental task, achieved by tracking the rotation of the stars around the celestial pole. The ancient Egyptians demonstrated this with staggering skill. The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned to the cardinal directions with an error of just 1/15 of a degree. To accomplish this, they probably used a method called the circumpolar star method, tracking the rising and setting points of a single star to find north with incredible accuracy. What is truly breathtaking is how this knowledge emerged independently across the globe. From the sun temples of Peru to the star-aligned monuments of ancient China, separated by vast oceans and millennia, humanity arrived at the same geometric solutions for connecting Earth to the sky. This suggests they were all tapping into the same universal mathematical truths, reading the same cosmic blueprint. These structures were more than temples or tombs. They were colossal calendars in stone, giant clocks that tracked the seasons, predicted eclipses, and marked sacred times. They grounded human life within the vast, orderly cycles of the universe. By binding their architecture to the heavens with such geometric precision, these civilizations did not just build monuments, they built eternal witnesses to time itself, creating a legacy that would outlast empires and languages. And this celestial connection was made physically possible by a third, equally brilliant geometric innovation, one that allowed them to move and shape the very Earth on a gargantuan scale. Centuries before the Greek philosopher Pythagoras formulated his famous theorem, a Babylonian mathematician pressed his stylus into wet clay, meticulously calculating the diagonal of a rectangle. This cuneiform tablet, known as Plimpton 322, is not a shopping list. It is a sophisticated trigonometric table, demonstrating a practical understanding of the relationships between the sides of a right-angled triangle. This is the third geometric principle, the sophisticated application of Pythagorean mathematics that formed the silent, unshakable skeleton of ancient monuments. These builders did not need to name the theorem to understand its power. They knew that a triangle with sides measuring 3, 4, and 5 units would always produce a perfect right angle, and this simple, unbreakable rule became one of the most important tools in their arsenal. In Egypt, as they laid the vast foundation of a pyramid, workers would have stretched a rope with 12 equally spaced knots. By looping it to form a triangle with sides of 3, 4, and 5 units, they could instantly verify that every corner was perfectly square, ensuring the entire monumental structure would rise true. This same practical geometry appears thousands of miles away, in the meticulously planned cities of the Indus Valley civilization. The Harappans used standardized bricks whose dimensions consistently reflected ratios found in right-angled triangles, allowing them to create perfectly aligned streets and robust, durable structures. But their understanding went far beyond simple triples. The true test of this geometric mastery is not in perfect angles, but in enduring stability. Look at the Borobudur Temple in Indonesia, a massive Buddhist monument built on one of the most seismically active islands on Earth. Its architects designed it as a series of interlocking platforms, using a complex arrangement of triangular and rectangular forms that act like a geometric shock absorber. When the ground shakes, these forms distribute and dissipate the energy, allowing the entire structure to sway as one cohesive unit rather than cracking apart. This is not guesswork. It reveals a profound, intuitive grasp of how forces move through shapes, an understanding of structural engineering that we would formally develop only millennia later. This hidden mathematical prowess required them to work with concepts we now call square roots and irrational numbers to determine the precise slope of a pyramid or the perfect curve of an arch. They were effectively solving complex equations with nothing but ropes, pegs, and an astonishingly sharp mind for spatial relationships. They understood that the triangle is nature's ultimate load-bearing shape, and by using it as the core component in arches, domes, and vaults, they could create spans and heights that seemed to defy gravity itself. The legacy of this mathematical genius is not written on parchment, but stands all around us in the form of structures that have withstood earthquakes, storms, and the slow erosion of centuries. They built with a knowledge so deep it became invisible, the geometric truth hidden in plain sight within the timeless angles of their immortal stone. That immense dome of the Roman Pantheon spans an open space so vast it seems to defy physics. It has done so for nearly 2,000 years, a silent testament to the fourth and perhaps most practical geometric principle mastered by ancient builders, the engineering magic of load distribution. They discovered that the true strength of a structure lies not just in its materials, but in the invisible pathways its geometry creates for the immense forces of weight and pressure. They learned to channel these forces to make stone and concrete work with gravity rather than against it, and in doing so, they built wonders that time itself cannot break. The arch is the perfect example of this genius. Before the arch, spanning a wide opening meant placing a heavy stone lintel across the top, which could crack under its own weight. But the arch, with its graceful curve, performs a kind of geometric alchemy. It takes the crushing vertical weight from above and transforms it, redirecting that force outward and downward along its curving sides. This outward push, called thrust, is the arch's secret. Roman engineers understood this perfectly. When they built their magnificent aqueducts, they contained this thrust by placing arches right next to each other, each one buttressing its neighbor, creating a chain of mutual support that could carry water for miles across rolling landscapes. This same principle was discovered independently across the world. The Maya, for instance, developed the corbel arch. Instead of a perfect curve, they created a triangular-shaped vault by stacking stones, each one cantilevered slightly inward until they met at the top. While structurally different from the Roman arch, the underlying geometric idea was the same, redirecting weight from a wide opening down toward the solid walls on either side. This understanding of how shapes manage force reaches its most dramatic expression in the earthquake-prone Andes. The Inca builders of Machu Picchu faced a constant threat from powerful tremors. Their brilliant solution was the trapezoid. Look at any Inca doorway, window, or niche, and you will see that its sides are not perfectly vertical. They angle inward toward the top. This simple geometric choice is profoundly intelligent. During an earthquake, as the ground shakes and a rectangular frame would rack and collapse, the trapezoid flexes. The angled sides allow the structure to shift and settle without breaking apart. The geometry itself acts as a built-in shock absorber, distributing the seismic energy safely throughout the entire wall. This is why these stone structures, built without mortar, still stand proudly on their mountain ridge centuries later. All of these innovations culminate in the ultimate geometric form, the dome. A dome is essentially an arch rotated around its center, a three-dimensional masterpiece of load distribution. The Pantheon's dome is not a solid, crushing weight of concrete. It is a meticulously engineered shell, thinning as it rises and with a giant oculus or opening at its crown. Its curvature ensures that every particle of concrete is in compression, pushing against its neighbors, creating a perfect, balanced equilibrium of forces that flows smoothly down into the massive cylindrical drum supporting it. There are no internal columns because the geometry of the dome itself becomes the support. This is the silent power of load-bearing geometry. It is the reason why these ancient structures feel so monumentally stable. We are subconsciously perceiving the perfect, efficient pathways they created for the immense forces they must bear. the builders did not just stack stones. They composed symphonies of balance and counter-thrust, using simple geometric forms as their notes. They turned architecture into a conversation with physics, and the buildings that have survived are those where every angle, every curve speaks the language of structural truth. That same principle of impermanent beauty, the Tibetan sand mandala, finds its eternal counterpart in stone. Across the world, the fifth geometric principle transformed entire landscapes into permanent representations of the cosmos. This was sacred geometry on a grand scale, where the layout of a city or temple complex was not just a plan for buildings, but a map of the universe itself. At Angkor Wat in Cambodia, you do not simply walk through a temple. You traverse a model of the Hindu cosmos. Its towering central spire represents the mythical Mount Meru, the axis of the world. The surrounding galleries are the mountain ranges that encircle it, and the vast moat is the cosmic ocean at the edge of creation. Every step is a symbolic journey through a geometrically perfect universe. Far away in ancient Mexico, the city of Teotihuacan was laid out with similar cosmic intent. The Avenue of the Dead runs for miles, perfectly straight, with the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon positioned along its length in precise geometric relationship to each other and to distant celestial bodies. The entire city is a massive terrestrial constellation. The geometry used in these plans was often breathtakingly complex. Architects wove in the Fibonacci sequence, the same spiral found in sunflowers, to dictate the proportions of plazas and courtyards, creating a rhythm that feels instinctively natural. They used the vesica piscis, the almond shape created by the intersection of two circles, a symbol of divine intersection and creation, to frame sacred spaces and align doorways. This was a hidden language of shapes, each with a deep spiritual meaning. But this cosmic symbolism was always paired with profound practicality. The ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley was built on a perfect grid system, with streets running north-south and east-west in a masterful display of urban planning. This geometry was not just for order, it allowed for sophisticated water drainage and sewage systems that would not be rivaled for thousands of years. The circular layout of ancient Baghdad, known as the Round City, was designed as a series of concentric rings with the caliph's palace at the very center. This geometry was a powerful symbol of a unified empire radiating from a single point of power, but it also created incredibly efficient defensive walls and managed the flow of people and goods with a logic that modern planners still study. The geometry served a dual purpose. It created cities that were spiritually aligned, representing humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos, while simultaneously making them functionally superior with better water access, improved air circulation, and more resilient social organization. This was the highest expression of their geometric mastery, the seamless fusion of the metaphysical and the physical. They were not just building places to live. They were building idealized worlds where every street, every wall, and every temple was a line in a prayer written across the earth, a permanent mandala meant to last for all time. Stand at the base of the Great Pyramid as the first light of dawn stretches its shadow across the desert floor. This shadow, cast with geometric perfection, is the first clue to a mathematical masterpiece hidden in plain sight. The pyramid's base is not merely a square, it is a square aligned to the cardinal directions with an accuracy that defies simple explanation. Each side faces true north, south, east, and west with an error of just 1/15 of a single degree. To put that in perspective with the simple tools believed available 4,500 years ago, this is like hitting a target the size of a coin from a mile away. This precision is not the result of chance, but of a profound and deliberate geometric will. The mathematical marvels only deepen from there. The relationship between the pyramid's height and the perimeter of its base yields a ratio that approximates 2 pi with 99.9% accuracy. This means the perimeter divided by the height gives you a number incredibly close to 2 times pi, the fundamental constant defining a circle. In this immense triangular form, the builders encoded the mathematics of a circle, uniting two of the most powerful geometric shapes in one structure. The slope of its sides further weaves in the golden ratio, approximately 1.618, and embodies a perfect 3-4-5 Pythagorean triangle, a shape guaranteed to produce a perfect right angle. How could one building hold so many mathematical constants at once? The sophistication suggests a unified theory of geometry, a single design that harmonized every known principle. The location itself whispers of lost knowledge. The Great Pyramid sits at the exact geographic center of Earth's landmass, the point where the longest meridian and longest parallel of land intersect. This implies an understanding of spherical geometry and a capacity for global mapping that we do not traditionally credit to this ancient civilization. Inside, the geometry continues its silent language. The narrow ascending passageways point directly to the pole star of that era, Alpha Draconis, locking the structure to the axis of the sky. Deep within, the king's chamber houses a coffer carved from a single block of granite. Its internal volume is not an arbitrary measurement, but corresponds to a standard geometric unit found in ancient systems across the world. Every dimension, every angle, every alignment in the Great Pyramid speaks of a single, cohesive geometric vision. It stands not as a random pile of stones, but as a three-dimensional textbook of advanced mathematics and astronomy, a testament to a knowledge so complete and so seamlessly integrated that its full understanding continues to elude us even today. The stones of Stonehenge do not whisper of kings or conquests. They speak a different language, one written in the silent alignment of rock and sky. On the summer solstice, the sun rises directly over the heel stone, its first rays pouring through the heart of the monument in a display that has been precisely choreographed for over 4,500 years. This was no crude calendar. It was a prehistoric masterpiece of geometric and astronomical engineering, built by a culture with no written records, yet possessing a profound understanding of cosmic cycles. The outer circle of towering sarsen stones forms a ring of breathtaking precision. Each stone was carefully shaped, its sides subtly tapered inward to correct for perspective and create the illusion of a perfect circle from any vantage point. This was geometry applied on a monumental scale, a conscious manipulation of form and perception, but the true genius of Stonehenge lies in the invisible lines drawn between its stones. The builders arranged the massive trilithons, those iconic structures of two vertical stones capped by a horizontal lintel, in a horseshoe shape that opens toward the midsummer sunrise. This created a permanent set of sightlines, a stone-built observatory that locked specific celestial events into the very landscape. The geometry becomes even more sophisticated when you consider the 4 station stones. These form a near-perfect rectangle, and the lines drawn across its diagonals point directly to the most extreme rising and setting points of the moon during its complex 18.6-year cycle, known as a lunar standstill. How could a Neolithic society track a cycle that takes nearly 2 decades to complete? They were not just marking days, they were mapping the slow, rhythmic dance of the cosmos itself. Perhaps the most intriguing geometric puzzle is the circle of 56 Aubrey holes that surrounds the entire site. This number, 56, is the key to a remarkable discovery. By moving markers around this circle at a fixed rate, The builders could have predicted eclipses, tracking the intricate interplay between the sun and moon cycles with astonishing accuracy. This simple circle of pits was, in effect, a massive, functional computer made of earth and chalk. The geometric knowledge required for this is staggering. The layout of the entire site incorporates right-angled triangles with perfect Pythagorean ratios, ensuring the accuracy of these alignments. The relationship between the diameters of the various stone circles even suggests an early understanding of the mathematical constant pi. This was not magic, it was applied mathematics of the highest order. These builders used the most fundamental shapes, the circle and the rectangle, not as simple forms, but as the components of a complex celestial engine. They transformed a Salisbury plane into a permanent interface between humanity and the heavens, proving that the language of geometry is truly timeless. Deep within the Central American jungle, the Maya built temples that were not just structures but stone equations. Their stepped pyramids, erupting from the green canopy, are masterpieces of geometric complexity, where every tier and angle was dictated by a sophisticated fusion of mathematics, astronomy, and deep spiritual belief. Unlike the old world's focus on perfect ratios like phi and pi, Maya geometry was fundamentally numerical, derived directly from their incredibly advanced calendar systems. Their architects worked with a sacred vocabulary of numbers, primarily 9, 13, and 20. These were not arbitrary choices. In Maya cosmology, 9 represented the 9 layers of the underworld, while 13 signified the 13 levels of the upper world. When you see a pyramid with 9 stepped levels, you are not just looking at a staircase to the summit. You are witnessing a physical model of the entire cosmos, a symbolic ladder connecting the realms of the gods to the world of humanity. This numerical code extended to the tracking of time itself. The number 20 was the base of their Vajramal counting system, and multiples of these sacred numbers were used to encode the cycles of celestial bodies, particularly the planet Venus, which they tracked with obsessive precision. The geometry of their cities was a direct reflection of the geometry of the heavens. At the great city of Tikal, towering temples were positioned to create specific sightlines to the horizon, marking the rising and setting points of the sun at the solstices and the complex path of Venus. Walking through the ceremonial center was like moving through a giant, three-dimensional astronomical chart. This celestial alignment reaches its most dramatic expression at Chichen Itza, with the pyramid known as El Castillo. This structure is a geometric marvel designed for a single, breathtaking moment. On the spring and autumn equinoxes, the setting sun casts a shadow along the northern staircase. The interplay of light and shadow on the stepped terraces creates the undulating body of a giant serpent, appearing to slither down from the temple at the summit to the stone snake heads at the base. This effect is not a happy accident of nature. It is the result of painstaking calculation requiring the pyramid's height, the width of the stairs, and the angle of each terrace to be in perfect geometric harmony with the sun's specific path on those 2 days of the year. It is architecture as celestial theater, a perfect marriage of form, function, and cosmic belief. To build the chambers within these stone mountains, Maya engineers developed their own unique solution, the corbel arch. Instead of the rounded arches of Rome, they created a triangular vault by stacking stones, each layer cantilevering slightly inward until the gap at the top could be sealed with a single capstone. This technique created strong, stable chambers and doorways, demonstrating a practical, powerful understanding of how to distribute weight using angular geometry. The Maya did not merely use geometry to build. They used it to write their worldview permanently into the landscape, creating a stone testament to a civilization that saw the universe as a vast, interconnected system of mathematical patterns waiting to be decoded. Silence holds a different quality within the innermost chamber of a South Indian temple. Here, in the dark sanctum, the air itself seems to vibrate with a latent energy, a phenomenon shaped not by chance but by the precise geometric patterns carved into every surface. This was sacred geometry not merely as a design philosophy, but as a functional technology. The architects of ancient India, guided by texts known as the Shilpa Shastras, treated geometry as a divine language. These were not simple building manuals. They were complex mathematical treatises that prescribed exact formulas for every single element of a temple, from the grand sweep of its central tower down to the most minute floral carving. The goal was to build more than a place of worship. It was to construct a perfectly tuned instrument for spiritual experience, a resonance chamber between the human and the divine. The entire process began with the mandala, a sacred square grid representing the cosmos in perfect, orderly expansion. This mandala was not just a drawing. It was the architectural blueprint etched onto the building site to dictate every dimension. The temple itself was conceived as the cosmic mountain, Meru, and its most striking feature, the soaring shikara or spire, is a masterpiece of geometric calculation. Its graceful, curvilinear form is not a freehand curve. It is a precise parabolic or hyperbolic curve, an equation in stone, engineered to draw the eye and, as believers held, to channel spiritual energy upward toward the heavens. This was geometry as a conductor, shaping both physical form and metaphysical intention. Perhaps the most tangible proof of their genius lies in the realm of sound. Specific chambers within these temples were designed as acoustic amplifiers. The geometry of the space, the angles of the walls, and the placement of pillars were all calculated to create standing waves and focal points that would magnify and purify sound. A single chant or the strike of a ritual bell would not just be heard, it would be felt, its vibrations washing through the chamber in a way that modern physics is only starting to analyze, turning prayer into a physical, enveloping experience. This marriage of cosmic symbolism and precise mathematics is breathtakingly evident at the Konark Sun Temple, conceived as a colossal stone chariot for the sun god. Here, solar geometry was the guiding principle. The entire structure is oriented and designed so that sunlight interacts with specific architectural elements, like intricately carved wheels, to function as a giant sundial, marking the hours and the passage of the seasons with silent, predictable accuracy. Underpinning all of this was an intuitive grasp of the same harmonic ratios that captivated the West. The Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio are woven invisibly into the proportions of pillars, the layout of courtyards, and the relationship between a temple's width and its height. This is why these spaces feel so inherently balanced and harmonious to our perception. We are subconsciously responding to the same universal constants of beauty and proportion. In the end, Indian temple architecture demonstrates geometry's ultimate purpose for these ancient builders. It was the essential bridge, the invisible tool that connected the physical act of construction with the spiritual goal of transcendence. Mathematical precision ensured the temple would stand for 1,000 years, but it also ensured that within its walls, the human spirit could resonate with something far greater than itself. 2,000 years later, the water still flows. Walk with me along the spine of an ancient Roman aqueduct, its arches repeating in a perfect geometric rhythm across the valleys of Europe. This is not a ruin, it is a working piece of infrastructure, a testament to an empire that treated geometry not as abstract theory, but as the bedrock of civilization itself. Roman engineers mastered the arch, understanding its secret was the redirection of force. The immense weight of the water channel above pushes down on the keystone, and the arch transforms that vertical crush into an outward thrust. By placing arch after arch side by side, each one buttressed the next, creating a chain of mutual support that could march for miles across any terrain. This geometric genius scaled up into the vast vaulted ceilings of their baths and basilicas and culminated in the breathtaking dome of the Pantheon. That dome is a perfect hemisphere, a slice of a sphere placed upon a cylinder. Its concrete shell grows thinner and its aggregate lighter as it rises, a precise geometric calculation that reduces weight while maintaining perfect compression. The oculus at its crown is not just a window to the gods, but the key to its stability, the single point that maintains the equilibrium of forces in a perfect balance that has held for nearly 2 millennia. This same precision governed their cities, laid out on a rigid grid of perpendicular main streets called the Cardo and Decumanus. This orthogonal plan, aligned to the cardinal directions, was geometric order imposed upon chaos, creating efficient, defensible, and logically organized urban centers whose blueprint we still use today. But perhaps their most subtle geometric achievement was in the aqueducts themselves. To keep water moving for dozens of miles without stagnating or eroding the channel, Roman engineers calculated a gradient of just a few inches every 100 feet. This minimal slope required an astonishing understanding of trigonometry and leveling over vast distances, a feat of practical geometry that delivered life to their cities. The architect Vitruvius codified this entire philosophy, arguing that buildings must embody fermeters, utiliters, venusters, strength, utility, and beauty, all derived from the geometric proportions found in nature and the human form. The Romans proved that geometry was the ultimate tool of empire, creating a physical world of such resilient logic that its bones still shape our own. These monumental echoes across time and space cannot be dismissed as mere coincidence. A pyramid in Egypt, a pyramid in Mexico, and a temple mountain in Cambodia, all built by cultures separated by vast oceans and thousands of years, all converged on the same elegant, sloping form. This striking parallel points toward a profound idea, the universal language hypothesis. It proposes that these civilizations were not copying each other, but were instead independently reading from the same cosmic blueprint, discovering identical geometric principles because these principles are embedded in the very fabric of reality. The pyramid itself is the ultimate testament to this. Its shape is not an arbitrary artistic choice. It is the mathematical solution to a fundamental engineering problem. How do you build something incredibly tall and massive that will not collapse under its own weight? The pyramid's sloping sides efficiently channel gravitational forces downward into the earth, while its broad base provides immense stability against earthquakes and storms. It is simply the most stable geometric structure for achieving monumental height. We see the same pattern with mathematical constants like pi and the golden ratio. These are not human inventions, they are human discoveries. They appear in the spirals of galaxies and the curves of seashells, so it is natural that when ancient builders sought to create structures of perfect proportion and enduring strength, they would independently arrive at these same ratios. The Great Pyramid's dimensions encode pi, just as the Parthenon's facade embodies the golden ratio, not because Greek architects visited Egypt, but because both were tapping into the same universal well of mathematical truth. The drive to align structures with the cardinal directions and celestial events reveals another layer of this shared logic. From the solstice alignment at Stonehenge to the Venus tracking of the Maya, this practice emerged globally because it worked. It provided a reliable calendar for planting and harvest. It created a sacred connection to the cosmos, and it imposed a divine order upon the chaos of human existence. The most compelling evidence for this universal language lies in the parallel solutions to specific structural challenges. Consider the corbel arch, where stones are stacked in successively inward projecting layers until they meet at the top. This identical technique appears in the tombs of the Mycenaeans in Greece and the temples of the Maya in Central America, two cultures with absolutely no contact. Look at the breathtakingly precise stone fitting of the Inca in Peru and the master stonemasons of feudal Japan, both achieving seamless, mortarless walls that could withstand tremendous seismic forces. Or the acoustic enhancements found in the open-air theaters of ancient Greece and the inner sanctums of Indian temples, where geometry was used to manipulate sound waves for clarity and spiritual resonance. These are not stories of cultural diffusion, but of convergent intellectual evolution, different minds gazing at the same stars and grappling with the same physical laws of gravity and stability, arrived at the same brilliant conclusions. This shared geometric vocabulary suggests a fundamental human capacity to perceive and apply the underlying mathematical order of our universe. The real mystery is not who taught whom, but why we all seem to hear the same silent, geometric music whispering through the cosmos. That Egyptian architect with his knotted rope possessed a tool more reliable than any modern digital level. His simple cord, stretched taut between two stakes, became the very definition of a straight line, the fundamental element from which all other geometry would grow. This was the humble genesis of architectural immortality. The knotted rope was their calculator and their protractor. By tying 12 equally spaced knots, a builder could instantly create a perfect right angle by forming a triangle with sides of 3, 4, and 5 units. This Pythagorean triple, used in Egypt and found in similar forms in ancient India and China, guaranteed that the corner of a pyramid or the foundation of a temple was perfectly square, setting the entire monumental project on a true and stable path. But straight lines and right angles were only the beginning. How do you ensure that the floor of a massive hall or the course of an aqueduct is perfectly level across miles of uneven terrain? Their solution was breathtakingly simple and utterly effective: the water level. A trench filled with water or two connected vessels will always find the same horizontal plane, regardless of the distance between them or the contour of the land. Roman engineers used this very principle to maintain the precise, gentle gradient of their aqueducts, a slope of just a few inches every 100 feet, allowing water to flow for dozens of miles without stagnating or eroding its channel. For aligning their structures with the cosmos, they developed simple yet brilliant sighting instruments. A tall, straight pole called a gnomon would cast a shadow whose length and direction could be tracked throughout the year. By marking the shadow's tip at the summer and winter solstices, they could bisect the angle to find true east and west. Some cultures used polished obsidian mirrors or still pools of water as reflective surfaces to catch the first or last glint of the sun on a significant day, creating a fixed celestial marker. The most sophisticated of these techniques involved a geometric concept we now call stereographic projection, a method for mapping the curved dome of the sky onto a flat plane. By understanding this principle intuitively, builders could translate the complex movements of stars and planets into precise alignments on the ground, embedding astronomical wisdom into their stonework without any formal knowledge of spherical trigonometry. When it came to creating the majestic curves of an arch or the perfect hemisphere of a dome, they again turned to simple, physical guides: a rotating armature, a fixed length of rope anchored at a central point, could sweep out a flawless circle or a parabolic curve as it moved. This process generated complex geometric forms through the most basic mechanical means, ensuring that every arch in a Roman aqueduct and every curve of a temple's spire was not an approximation but a mathematical reality. The profound lesson here is that these tools worked not because they were complex, but because they were direct expressions of geometry itself. The rope obeyed the rule of the straight line. The water level embodied the principle of the horizontal plane. The rotating armature manifested the definition of a circle. The true source of their precision was not in the tools, but in the ancient minds that understood how to harness these immutable laws, proving that the deepest architectural truths are found not in technology, but in timeless geometric wisdom. 1,000 years after the fall of Rome, a new intellectual light burned brightly in cities like Baghdad and Cairo. Islamic scholars, acting as the great librarians of the ancient world, did not merely preserve Greek geometric texts by thinkers like Euclid and Archimedes. They absorbed their principles and then expanded them into breathtaking new forms. Walk through a medieval mosque and look up at the ceiling. You will see a universe of interlocking stars and polygons, a complex web known as Jiri tile patterns. At first glance, this is sublime art, but look closer and you see a precursor to concepts we would only formally name centuries later. These repeating, self-similar patterns, which could extend infinitely without ever repeating the exact same sequence, are a direct ancestor of modern fractal geometry and Penrose tilings. This was not just decoration, it was advanced mathematics rendered in ceramic and stone, a living bridge between the ancient world and the scientific revolution to come. This preserved knowledge eventually flowed back into Europe, igniting the Renaissance. In Florence, the architect Filippo Brunelleschi was obsessed with the ruins of Rome and the rediscovered writings of Vitruvius. Faced with the seemingly impossible task of building a dome for the city's cathedral, a span wider than any attempted since the Pantheon, he turned to the geometric principles of the ancients. His brilliant solution was a double-shelled dome connected by a skeletal structure of ribs and chains. This was not guesswork. It was a masterful application of geometric load-bearing, using the inherent strength of the pointed arch to channel forces safely downward. Brunelleschi did not have Roman concrete. He had geometric insight, proving that the old knowledge, when understood, could still achieve the impossible. This geometric reawakening permeated every field. Artists like Leonardo da Vinci became obsessed with the Vitruvian Man, the perfect fusion of the human form with the circle and the square. For Leonardo, this was not just a drawing. It was a declaration that the same proportional systems governing temples and pyramids were also the blueprint for the human body. Art, science, and the divine were all united through geometry. The practical challenges left by the ancients themselves directly fueled the birth of modern mathematics. How do you calculate the exact volume of a curved shape like a dome? How do you find the area under a complex curve? These were the very problems that ancient monuments posed, and they drove the minds of the 17th century, like Isaac Newton and Gottfried Leibniz, to develop a new language to describe a changing world, the calculus. The legacy is not confined to history books. Even today, architects study the Parthenon's subtle curves, its columns that bulge slightly to correct for optical illusion, a lesson in perceptual geometry that remains relevant. Material scientists analyze samples of Roman concrete, marveling at its self-healing properties, a chemical secret lost for millennia that we are only now relearning. The ancient Maya calendar, with its complex long count cycles, has provided fascinating puzzles for modern number theorists, and sophisticated analyses of the Great Pyramid's proportions continue to reveal an apparent understanding of irrational numbers like pi and phi, encoded in stone long before they were formalized in text. This is the true mathematical legacy of the forgotten civilizations. Their geometry was not a primitive set of rules. It was a sophisticated, living engagement with the mathematical reality of our universe, a foundation stone upon which our entire modern world of science, engineering, and design was ultimately built. Laser light traces the contours of a stone laid by a Mayan mason 1,000 years ago, revealing imperfections measured in microns. This is not guesswork anymore. Modern science has given us the tools to measure the ancient world with a precision its own builders might have envied, and what we are discovering is rewriting our understanding of their genius. Take LiDAR technology, which uses lasers to see through dense jungle canopy. In Guatemala, it has exposed entire Maya cities planned with a geometric rigor invisible from the ground. Vast ceremonial centers, pyramids, and ball courts are connected by causeways that form perfect lines and angles across the landscape, aligning not just to single stars, but to the complex, multi-decade cycles of planets with an accuracy we are only now beginning to map. The very ground was shaped into a cosmic diagram. Meanwhile, in a materials lab, scientists examining a fragment of Roman concrete made a startling discovery. The secret to its legendary durability is not just its composition, but its geometry. The Romans mixed in specific, randomly shaped aggregates of lime and volcanic ash. When a tiny crack forms, it naturally travels toward these lime clasts. Upon contact with water, the lime recrystallizes, effectively healing the fracture. This was not a random recipe. It was a brilliant geometric distribution of materials, a self-healing technology engineered into the very fabric of their architecture. Step into the great hall of an ancient Greek theater, and even a whisper from the stage can be heard in the highest seat. Acoustic analysis has confirmed this is no happy accident. The precise curvature of the stone seating acts as a massive acoustic lens, focusing sound waves and filtering out background noise through principles of wave interference. The builders shaped stone to sculpt the air itself, creating spaces where voice and music could carry with supernatural clarity. Perhaps the most humbling revelations come from the data collected at megalithic sites. At Stonehenge, the arrangement of stones encodes the mathematical constant pi in the relationship between its concentric circles. The famous blue stones form a rectangle whose diagonals, when bisected, create perfect Pythagorean triangles, proving a working knowledge of this relationship millennia before the Greeks formalized it. This precision, repeated across thousands of monuments from Karnak to Kalanish, cannot be dismissed as coincidence. Even the practicalities of construction are being vindicated. Computer simulations modeling the Egyptian rope and peg techniques described in ancient texts have demonstrated that these simple methods can, in fact, produce the near-perfect squareness and alignment found in the Great Pyramid, solving riddles that have puzzled archaeologists for centuries. But the most profound discovery may be the simplest. Despite the vast distances and different measurement systems, the Egyptian cubit, the Mesopotamian foot, the Mayan ton, a common thread binds them. The proportions of temples, tombs, and plazas worldwide often reflect the same ratios found in the human body and in nature, like the golden ratio. They all seem to have arrived at the same universal language of form. These are not the marks of primitive cultures. They are the fingerprints of sophisticated mathematical minds, a parallel stream of scientific understanding that in its applied mastery of geometry and physics, rivaled knowledge that would be lost and only rediscovered centuries later. These geometric marvels were not born in an academic vacuum. They emerged from a landscape of intense debate, a quiet war of ideas fought between university halls and independent research labs. The central question is deceptively simple: How did they do it? How did cultures with what we consider primitive technology achieve such staggering precision? The academic mainstream presents a compelling picture of gradual, painstaking progress. They argue that generations of sky watchers, using simple gnomons and sighting poles, could have refined their alignments over centuries. The near-perfect cardinal orientation of the Great Pyramid, in this view, is the crowning achievement of a long tradition of observational astronomy, not a single, impossible act of genius. Yet for alternative researchers, this gradualist explanation feels insufficient. They point to the sheer perfection, the global scale of these achievements, and ask if we are missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. Could there have been a lost chapter in human history? A now vanished civilization with a sophisticated understanding of the world, whose knowledge was passed down in fragments. Or, in the most controversial theories, did ancient builders receive guidance from an outside, perhaps even extraterrestrial, source? These ideas, while often dismissed by mainstream science, speak to a profound sense of wonder and a reluctance to believe such perfection was born of trial and error alone. The debate over encoded constants like pi and the golden ratio is equally fierce. One camp sees the presence of pi in the Great Pyramid's proportions as a deliberate mathematical signature, a message left in stone by architects who understood transcendental numbers. The other camp counters that these constants emerge naturally from basic construction methods. If you roll a wheel to measure a distance, for instance, the relationship between its diameter and its circumference, pi, automatically appears in your results. Was it intentional genius or a happy byproduct of practical engineering? This same tension surrounds the uncanny parallels between distant cultures. How do we explain the pyramid form appearing in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Americas? Mainstream anthropology champions the powerful idea of independent invention, the convergent evolution of the human mind when faced with the same structural and spiritual challenges. Different cultures, looking at the same problems of stability and celestial connection, simply arrived at the same brilliant geometric solutions. Alternative historians, however, see potential evidence for transoceanic contact, for a forgotten network of seafarers who shared a core body of knowledge across the globe. Even the timelines we take for granted are now being questioned. Some researchers, using geological weathering patterns and recalibrated astronomical data, propose that structures like the Sphinx are thousands of years older than accepted Egyptology allows. If true, this would upend our entire understanding of the rise of civilization and the pace of human innovation. These controversies are not just academic squabbles. They strike at the very heart of who we are and what our ancestors were capable of achieving. They force us to ask whether we have underestimated the intellectual power of the ancient world, and whether a vast repository of systematic geometric knowledge, a science of stone and stars, was lost in the slow turn of the ages. The silent, interlocking stones of an Inca wall hold a secret that modern engineers are only now learning to speak. In a world facing rising seismic threats, contemporary architects are turning away from rigid steel frames and looking back to these ancient, flexible geometries. They are discovering that the trapezoidal doorways and polygonal stonework of Machu Picchu were not just stylistic choices, but brilliant solutions to a fundamental problem: how to dance with an earthquake instead of resisting it. Today, in architectural firms from Japan to California, digital models simulate these very principles, designing buildings that incorporate slight trapezoidal shapes and interlocking structural systems. These forms allow a structure to sway and settle during a tremor, dissipating destructive energy just as the Inca walls have done for centuries. This is not nostalgia. It is a pragmatic return to geometric truths that have been proven by time itself. This ancient wisdom extends far beyond earthquake engineering. consider the timeless challenge of climate control, long before the invention of air conditioning. The passive solar design of ancient Greek homes or Pueblo cliff dwellings, oriented with precise geometric calculation to capture the low winter sun and block the high summer heat, is the direct ancestor of today's bioclimatic architecture. Modern builders are now using sophisticated software to replicate these geometric relationships, positioning windows, overhangs, and thermal mass in perfect proportion to the sun's path, drastically reducing energy consumption by working with nature's geometry rather than fighting against it. Look up at the facade of a new skyscraper in a desert climate, and you might see a complex, lace-like screen shading its glass walls. This modern Brai Solil is a direct descendant of the geometric mashrabiyah screens and jiri tile patterns of Islamic architecture. Those intricate star and polygon designs were never merely decorative. They were engineered to break up the harsh sun, create cooling ventilation, and cast complex, shifting shadows that regulate light and temperature. Modern material science has embraced this same ancient insight, that a building's skin can be a geometrically active, energy-saving system. Perhaps the most profound application, however, lies in the realm of human experience. After decades of sterile, box-like buildings that prioritize cost efficiency over well-being, architects are rediscovering the proportional systems that make ancient temples feel so inherently peaceful and uplifting. The golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence are being quietly woven back into the blueprints for everything from a single-family home to an entire urban district. The dimensions of a room, the height of a ceiling, the layout of a public square, when guided by these natural proportions, create spaces that feel instinctively right to us. We are biologically wired to respond to this harmonic geometry because it is the same pattern found in the branching of trees and the spiral of a galaxy. Even the very materials we build with are being reimagined through an ancient lens. The self-healing property of Roman concrete, with its strategically distributed lime clasts that recrystallize to seal cracks, has inspired a new generation of bioconcrete that uses embedded bacteria to achieve the same geometric repair mechanism. The flawless acoustics of an ancient Greek theater, achieved through the precise curvature of its stone seats, now inform the design of modern concert halls, where every surface is calculated to carry sound with crystalline clarity. This is not a rejection of the new, but a fusion of the timeless and the contemporary. It is a recognition that those master builders, with their ropes and rods, understood something essential about the dialogue between form and force, between structure and spirit. They left behind not just monuments, but a geometric language for building a world that is not only stronger and more efficient, but also more beautiful and more human. The silence within a temple's meditation chamber feels different, shaped by the geometric patterns that cover its walls. These repeating forms are not mere decoration. They are a spiritual technology designed to focus the mind and elevate consciousness. For the builders, geometry was the essential bridge between the physical world we touch and the metaphysical realms they sought to access. This profound belief explains the extraordinary, almost superhuman effort they invested in achieving perfect proportions. They were convinced that a properly aligned and harmoniously shaped structure could tune human activity to the cosmic order, bringing divine balance down to earth. In the Hindu tradition, the entire temple is a geometric recreation of Purusha, the cosmic being whose body constitutes the universe itself. Every measurement, from the grand spire to the smallest shrine, follows a sacred diagram that maps this divine anatomy onto stone. Walk through such a space, and you are not just in a building, you are walking through a symbolic representation of all creation. The ancient Egyptians held a similar conviction. The pyramid's sharply sloping sides were not just an engineering solution. They were a physical representation of the descending rays of the sun, a ramp of solidified light designed to propel the pharaoh's soul on its celestial journey to the stars. Across the ocean, Native American cultures laid out medicine wheels with perfect circular geometry, mapping spiritual concepts of the four directions and the cycle of life directly onto the natural landscape. And Buddhist stupas rise in meticulously proportioned tiers, each level representing a distinct stage on the path to enlightenment. What is truly fascinating is that modern science is now beginning to understand why these geometric spaces affect us so deeply. Neuroscience reveals that specific proportions and repeating patterns can actually alter our brainwave states, slowing them down into the alpha and theta rhythms associated with deep meditation, prayer, and heightened awareness. The intricate fractal patterns in Hindu and Islamic sacred geometry, for instance, create a visual complexity that fully engages the mind's pattern recognition systems without overwhelming them, guiding the brain into a state of focused calm. Similarly, the harmonic proportions of Gothic cathedrals were not just for visual grandeur. They created unique acoustic environments where chanting and music resonate in ways that physically enhance the feeling of transcendence. This spiritual dimension reveals that ancient geometry served a triple purpose. It provided the practical rules for construction, it enabled precise astronomical observation, and it functioned as a tool for the transformation of human consciousness. These monuments were never just tombs or temples. They were sophisticated instruments for human development, designed to help people touch something greater than themselves. When we understand this holistic vision, their relentless pursuit of geometric perfection suddenly makes profound sense. They were not building for our admiration, they were building portals. A shipwreck off the coast of a Greek island yielded more than statues and pottery. When divers brought up a lump of corroded bronze, they had unknowingly recovered one of history's greatest puzzles. This was the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient Greek device of breathtaking complexity. Its intricate system of bronze gears, some with teeth cut at precise angles, functioned as a mechanical computer capable of predicting planetary positions and even forecasting eclipses. Most astonishingly, it used a concept called differential gearing, a principle that allows for the calculation of differences in rotation. According to our conventional historical timeline, this technology should not reappear until the European Renaissance, over 1,000 years later. This single artifact forces us to ask, what other geometric and mechanical genius has been lost to the sea of time? Consider the foundational act of Egyptian pyramid building, aligning these colossal structures to the cardinal directions with an error margin of just a fraction of a single degree. Modern engineers achieve this with digital theodolites and GPS. The ancient Egyptians did it without magnetic compasses, which were unknown to them. Their method, likely involving precise stellar observations, represents a geometric understanding of spherical astronomy so advanced that its exact technique remains a subject of intense debate. They possessed a working knowledge of true north that our historical narratives struggle to account for. Then there are the whispers in the stone. Enter certain ancient chambers, like the Mayan temple at Chichen Itza or the underground oracle room in Malta, and a simple hand clap or spoken word produces bizarre acoustic effects, from echoing chirps to reverberations that seem to defy physics. Modern architects with sophisticated modeling software struggle to replicate these properties consistently. The builders clearly understood how sound waves interact with geometric space, shaping stone to manipulate air itself in ways we are only beginning to decode. Perhaps the most staggering evidence of lost knowledge lies not in single buildings, but in the grand geographic canvas. The three main pyramids at Giza are arranged in a pattern that mirrors the three belt stars of the constellation Orion with an uncanny spatial correspondence. On the other side of the world, the vast temple complex of Angkor Wat in Cambodia is laid out as a terrestrial map of the constellation Draco. The geometric challenge here is monumental. How did these cultures survey such vast distances and translate celestial patterns onto the landscape with such accuracy? Conventional history suggests they lacked the tools for such large-scale, precise cartography. This points to a sophisticated understanding of spherical projection, the art of mapping the curved dome of the sky onto the flat plane of the Earth, a complex geometric concept. Some researchers even propose that the elegant, gradual curvature of certain ancient arches and domes incorporates principles of calculus, the mathematics of continuous change, which was not formally developed until the 17th century. Others see in the complex spatial relationships of sites like Teotihuacan in Mexico hints of non-Euclidean geometry, which deals with the properties of curved surfaces. Were these civilizations merely lucky in their designs, or did they possess a more intuitive, applied grasp of these advanced mathematical fields, an understanding that was never written down in a form that survived? The loss of this knowledge is as significant as its discovery. How does a society forget how to build a mechanical computer or align a city to the stars? The answer likely lies in the fragile nature of knowledge itself. Specialized craft knowledge often resided with small guilds or priestly classes. Periods of social collapse, invasion, or rapid cultural change could sever these threads of transmission in a single generation. Libraries burned, master craftsmen died without apprentices. The practical how-to of this advanced geometry may have been so embedded in ritual and oral tradition that when that tradition died, the technical understanding died with it. We are left with the magnificent, silent results, but not the user manual. This forces a humbling realization. Our linear view of human progress, steadily climbing from primitive to advanced, may be fundamentally flawed. It seems more likely that history moves in cycles, with peaks of achievement and devastating valleys of forgetting. We are not necessarily smarter than the ancients. We are simply rediscovering, piece by painstaking piece, a geometric language they once spoke with fluent mastery. The stone windows of Machu Picchu frame the mountain peaks with such precision they seem carved from the same living rock. This was not mere construction. It was a profound conversation between geometry and the earth itself. Ancient builders understood that for a structure to truly endure, it had to become an extension of the landscape, not an imposition upon it. They used geometry as the language for this integration, creating a seamless bond between the human-made and the natural world. This environmental geometry worked on multiple levels, beginning with celestial alignment to the local terrain. The Maya, for instance, did not just build temples to track the stars. They positioned them so that the Sun or Venus would rise directly over a specific, sacred mountain peak on a significant day, using the natural horizon as a permanent astronomical marker in their stone calendars. The Egyptians masterfully tied their pyramids to the Nile's annual flood, with causeways and temples aligned to the river's flow, integrating their celestial ambitions with the terrestrial reality that sustained their civilization. In Southeast Asia, the massive Buddhist temple of Borobudur was conceived as a three-dimensional mandala, its concentric terraces and stupas perfectly mirroring the volcanic mountains that encircle it. The geometry of the temple and the geometry of the landscape resonate as a single harmonic form. This integration always served a deep practicality alongside its spiritual purpose. The builders of Pueblo cliff dwellings in the American Southwest positioned their homes beneath massive rock overhangs, using the natural stone as a giant thermal mass. The geometry of their construction worked with the sun's path, capturing warmth in winter and providing cool shade in summer, creating a self-regulating environment. Roman city planners employed geometric principles to align their streets with prevailing winds for natural ventilation, and they situated settlements with geometric precision relative to aquifers and rivers, ensuring a reliable water supply. Perhaps the most sophisticated aspect of this ancient practice was the creation of visual relationships across vast distances. They would position a temple or a standing stone so that it created a perfect sightline to a distant mountain or a unique geological formation miles away. This large-scale geometry transformed entire regions into sacred maps, connecting human centers to powerful natural features through invisible geometric lines. We are only beginning to appreciate the scale of this achievement through modern technologies like geographic information system mapping, which reveals patterns of alignment that stretch across horizons. This was geometry thinking big, demonstrating that the true mastery of the ancients was not just in building structures, but in weaving those structures into the very fabric of the world. In an age of environmental disconnect, their work stands as a timeless lesson in harmony, written in stone upon the earth. One name survives from ancient Egypt, that of Imhotep, but countless others remain forever anonymous. These were the master builders, the human minds who transformed abstract geometric principles into immortal stone. While pharaohs and kings took credit for the monuments, it was these intellectual elites who possessed the real power, the mathematical understanding that could literally move mountains. In Egypt, the position of overseer of all the king's works was one of the most prestigious titles a person could hold, signifying a mind capable of calculating slopes, aligning to stars, and managing the labor of thousands, all without a single modern instrument. They were the original engineers, their authority derived not from birthright but from knowledge. This specialized understanding created a class of keepers, individuals who guarded geometric secrets as their most valuable possession. In medieval Europe, the master masons who designed the great cathedrals formed closed guilds and lodges. They did not work from detailed architectural plans as we know them. Instead, they used a system of practical geometry, employing compasses and straightedges to create full-scale geometric patterns right on the tracing house floor. These methods, these secret ratios for achieving perfect proportion and stability, were passed from master to apprentice through hands-on demonstration and cryptic symbols, never written down in a theoretical text. The knowledge was too powerful to be shared freely. This transmission of complex information without formal writing is one of the most remarkable aspects of their achievement. Consider the Polynesian navigators who undertook voyages across thousands of miles of open ocean. They used a mental star compass, a sophisticated geometric map of the night sky, and could read the subtle patterns in ocean swells. This entire system of celestial and wave geometry was memorized through chance and perfected through a lifetime of practical experience, a living library of spatial knowledge carried in a single human mind. Behind every master architect stood an army of highly skilled craftsmen who turned theory into reality. The quarrymen were not simple laborers. They were artisans who could split granite and limestone into blocks with faces so precise they required no mortar, their work guided by an intimate understanding of stone's geometry and fracture points. The carpenters constructed the complex wooden formwork for arches and domes, temporary structures that had to be geometrically perfect to support tons of masonry until the final keystone was set. Even the workers operating ramps and levers were applying fundamental principles of mechanical advantage, using the geometry of the inclined plane and the lever to multiply their strength. When we see these ancient wonders, we are not just looking at stone. We are witnessing the culmination of a cultural tradition that valued precision, patience, and intergenerational knowledge. It was a society that empowered its experts and trained its craftsmen to execute a vision that would take decades, sometimes centuries, to complete. The true geometric marvel is not just the perfect angle or the precise alignment. It is the human capacity for collective, long-term achievement, the ability of ordinary people to come together and build the extraordinary for a future they would never see. A pyramid's stark silhouette against the Egyptian desert speaks a language of absolute permanence. Its geometry is one of mass and stability, of clean lines and perfect cardinal alignment, designed to withstand millennia under the sun. Yet travel to the heart of ancient Greece, and you find a different geometric dialect entirely. Here, geometry was not about defying time, but about celebrating the ideal human form and its place in a harmonious cosmos. The Parthenon's columns are not merely straight, they curve subtly to correct for optical illusion, and their spacing follows complex proportional rules that make the temple feel alive and perfectly balanced to the human eye. This was geometry scaled to humanity, an expression of mathematical idealism where every ratio was meant to reflect the order of the universe itself. Across the Atlantic, the Maya wove geometry with time. Their stepped pyramids are not just symbolic mountains, they are colossal stone calendars. The number of tiers, the count of steps, the alignment of entire causeways, all encoded their sacred calendrical cycles and tracked the complex dance of Venus and the sun. At Chichen Itza, the pyramid becomes a celestial timepiece, where light and shadow conspire to create the illusion of a serpent descending only on the equinoxes. This is geometry in service of astronomy, a way to lock the rhythms of the cosmos into the very stone of their cities. In India, geometry was a spiritual technology dictated by sacred texts. The Shilpa Shastras provided exhaustive mathematical formulas for every element of a temple, transforming construction into a precise ritual. The result is the soaring, curvilinear Shikara spire, a parabolic curve that draws the eye and spirit heavenward, its form an equation meant to channel divine energy. Contrast this with the pragmatic elegance of Chinese architecture, where wooden bracket sets known as dugong created a modular geometric system. These interlocking wooden pieces distributed weight with incredible efficiency, allowing for sweeping roofs and structures that could dance with earthquakes, proving that geometric genius could be as much about flexible joinery as immutable stone. And then there are the silent, powerful geometries of megalithic Europe. At Karnak in France, thousands of standing stones stretch for miles in eerily straight lines and complex patterns across the landscape. This was not architecture in the conventional sense, but a geometric marking of territory, a way to inscribe ceremony, astronomy, and social identity directly onto the earth itself using the most fundamental of forms, the line and the circle. The materials themselves shaped this geometric expression. Cultures working with massive stone blocks, like the Egyptians and Incas, perfected the geometry of precise fitting, creating immovable walls from irregular polygons. Civilizations that built with brick, like the Babylonians, developed the geometry of complex patterns, weaving mesmerizing repetitive designs into their ziggurats and walls. And wood-based cultures, like those in ancient Japan and China, mastered the geometry of joinery, creating intricate interlocking joints that allowed their structures to flex and sway. What becomes clear is that geometry was never a single, rigid doctrine. It was a versatile and universal language, spoken with wonderfully distinct accents by every culture that picked it up. They all engaged with the same fundamental truths of mathematics, the same Pythagorean triangles and harmonic ratios, but they expressed these truths through the unique lens of their world, their beliefs, and the very materials they had at hand. This beautiful variation reveals not a difference in intelligence, but a difference in intention, proving that the same silent music of the cosmos can inspire countless different songs. The massive stone platform of Baalbek presents a geometric puzzle that humbles modern engineering. Its foundation contains 3 colossal blocks, each weighing over 800 tons, positioned with a precision that seems to defy the very physics of human labor. How a civilization moved and placed these megaliths, arranging them in such a perfect, interconnected pattern, remains one of history's most stubborn mysteries. This is not an isolated riddle. Across the globe, the geometric genius of ancient builders has left behind questions that our advanced science still struggles to answer. In Peru, the stone walls of the Inca showcase a masonry technique so flawless that the joints between multi-ton blocks are tighter than a human hair. The stones, often with complex, irregular polygonal shapes, fit together like an immense 3-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. This was not achieved by brute force, but through a profound, almost intuitive, understanding of geometry and stone fracture points, a technique we have been unable to replicate on such a scale. The geometric mysteries only deepen when we pull back to a grander scale. The layout of the Giza pyramids is not a random arrangement. The positions of the 3 main pyramids relative to the Nile and to each other form geometric relationships that some researchers argue encode the Earth's dimensions, including its circumference and axial tilt. This suggests the builders may have possessed a form of global geography and geodesy, a science of measuring the Earth that we do not traditionally attribute to their time. Then there are the mysteries of sound. At the Mayan pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza, a simple hand clap at the base of the staircase produces a chirping echo that perfectly mimics the call of the sacred Quetzal bird. This is not an acoustic accident. It is the result of the staircase's precise geometry, where each step acts as a sound diffractor, breaking the single clap into a series of rapid reflections that our brains interpret as a bird's chirp. The builders shaped stone to sculpt sound itself, using a knowledge of wave geometry that we can only model with sophisticated computer simulations. Even more baffling are sites like Puma Punku in Bolivia. Here, stone blocks of andesite and granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, are cut with a precision that appears machined. They feature perfect right angles, identical repeating H-blocks, and complex geometric channels and dowel holes that interlock with micrometer precision. The geometric consistency across hundreds of these stones suggests the use of standardized templates and cutting tools far beyond what conventional archaeology attributes to the Tiwanaku culture. Some of the most elusive geometric secrets are those designed to remain hidden. Certain ancient sites contain patterns and alignments that only reveal themselves from a single, specific vantage point, or at a particular moment when the sunlight strikes at a precise angle. This implies a sophisticated understanding of perspective, optics, and visual effects, turning entire structures into grand illusions or hidden messages meant only for the initiated. These enduring puzzles are not failures of modern science. They are invitations. They remind us that our current understanding of history and human capability is a work in progress. The geometric wisdom of these forgotten civilizations represents a living field of inquiry, a collection of open questions that continue to challenge our assumptions and inspire a new generation of explorers to look at these ancient stones with fresh eyes and humble mind. That Egyptian royal cubit rod, preserved behind museum glass, is far more than an artifact. It is a physical key to a forgotten system of order, a standardized length that coordinated thousands of workers to build a geometric marvel. These ancient units of measure were not arbitrary. They were born from the human body and the natural world, then refined through geometry to become the invisible framework for civilization itself. The royal cubit, approximately 52.3 centimeters, was likely derived from the length of a pharaoh's forearm from elbow to fingertip, but its true significance lies in its geometric consistency. Every block of the Great Pyramid conforms to this measure, proving that the builders worked from a shared, precise standard that allowed for the seamless assembly of a structure with millions of individual parts. Some researchers have proposed an even more profound origin for this unit, suggesting the royal cubit related to the Earth's polar circumference through a simple geometric formula involving a circle and its inscribed square. Whether this was intentional or a remarkable coincidence, it hints at a worldview where human construction was intimately tied to the geometry of the planet. This pattern of a shared geometric standard emerges across the globe. In Neolithic Europe, a unit now called the megalithic yard, about 82.9 centimeters, was used with astonishing consistency in the construction of stone circles from Scotland to England. The presence of this same measure across hundreds of miles and different communities suggests these separate groups were using an identical geometric language, a common rule that enabled them to create landscapes of perfect circles and aligned avenues. Far across the Atlantic, the Maya developed their own sophisticated system based on the human body. Their basic unit, the ton, approximately 360 centimeters, and its subdivisions created a modular approach to architecture. A temple's dimensions would be whole multiples of this unit, allowing for expansion and replication while maintaining perfect proportional harmony. The design could grow, but its geometric integrity remained unbroken. What is truly fascinating is how these ancient systems often encoded deeper mathematical knowledge. The relationship between different units within a single culture sometimes reveals an understanding of irrational numbers or the golden ratio. The transition from ancient to modern measurement was not a clean break. The Roman foot, itself likely derived from earlier systems, became the foundation for medieval European measurements, which eventually influenced the English inch and foot we still use in some parts of the world today. In China, an ancient modular system of construction called the Jian used standard bays based on geometric proportions, a concept that directly anticipates the prefabricated and modular building techniques of our own time. Even the way we measure time carries this ancient geometric legacy. The 360 degrees in a circle, a division invented by the Babylonians with their base 60 mathematics, continues to dictate how we divide our hours and minutes and how we map the globe. Every time you check your watch or look at a compass, you are using a system shaped by prehistoric geometric thinking. This is the ultimate legacy of their geometric pursuit. It was never just about a single pyramid or temple. It was about creating a systematic, reproducible approach to the world, a language of proportion and measurement that could build not just monuments but civilizations. Their wisdom is etched not only in stone, but in the very rulers we hold in our hands and the clocks we watch on our walls. The true legacy of these ancient builders is not locked in their stones, but in the timeless geometric wisdom they encoded within them. We stand today at the end of a long journey, humbled by the mathematical sophistication of ordinary people who achieved the extraordinary. Their mastery of proportion, celestial alignment, and load-bearing form represents far more than architectural technique. It was a profound engagement with the very fabric of mathematical reality, a universal language spoken in countless cultural dialects yet understood by all. What feels particularly urgent in our modern world is how holistically they applied this knowledge. They refused to separate architecture from astronomy, spirituality from environmental design, creating structures that were not just buildings, but integrated systems in harmony with the cosmos and the Earth. We, with all our specialized fields, often struggle to achieve this same unity. the enduring stability of their work offers a powerful lesson in sustainable construction. While so much of our contemporary architecture requires constant maintenance, replacement, and enormous energy inputs, these ancient monuments have stood for millennia with little more than the original geometric intelligence of their design. Their harmonious proportions, derived from the golden ratio and other natural constants, provide a blueprint for creating environments that do more than shelter us. They enhance our well-being, calm our minds, and connect us to patterns that feel instinctively right because they are woven into the world itself and into our own biological makeup. This geometric legacy reminds us that human capability is not ultimately defined by our technology, but by our depth of understanding. It shows us what becomes possible when we grasp fundamental principles and apply them with creativity, patience, and precision. The pyramids, the temples, the stone circles, they are all permanent invitations. They ask us to look past the weathered surface and rediscover the universal wisdom that connects human creation to cosmic order. As we confront our own complex challenges, from climate resilience to designing livable cities, their greatest lesson may be this: lasting solutions emerge not from dominating nature, but from observing its patterns and working in concert with them. The next time you pass by an ancient structure in your own region, I encourage you to pause, look at it with new eyes, and consider the geometric intelligence it represents. What secrets might its angles hold? What alignment to the sun or stars did its builders honor? Share in the comments any geometric mysteries from ancient sites you have encountered in your travels. If this exploration has changed how you see the built environment around you, consider joining our community for more journeys into the hidden intelligence of the